Good evening and welcome on another segment of Tete on Tele Kreyol. My name is Charles Lucien and I'll be your host for this segment of the program. Clearly in the Haitian community there have been a lot of debates and discussions about the need for a political voice. As a matter of fact, there have been several organizations that emerged for the past 2 or 3 years trying to encourage people to vote or to become American citizens. Not too long ago, we've heard in the community about the candidacy of Caleb Desrosiers, a young Haitian. He's 25 years old, a recent graduate from Suffolk University as a lawyer, and he's running for the Senate for the second Suffolk. So we are pleased tonight to welcome Caleb Desrosiers, and we'll be talking about his candidacy as well as his agenda. Caleb, welcome on Tele Kreyol.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Caleb, let's start with the basics. What's the best way to introduce Caleb Desrosiers to the audience?
Well, Caleb Desrosiers for the Haitians and for the rest of the community is individual who's dedicated his life to making sure that as we enter the next century that we are prepared, that our children are prepared to compete for the jobs that are so instrumental to the production of Massachusetts. Massachusetts, as you know, is one of the richest states in the country. Boston is ranked, according to Fortune magazine, the 3rd most improved city in the United States. There are so many resources, but we have to build the partnerships to make it a reality for our community, and I think we failed in that respect to build the partnerships for those the productive or better productive community.
In terms of background, what would you say that really habilitated you to run for the Senate and to represent so many people in Massachusetts?
Sure. I've been involved in politics most of my life. I've observed a lot of politicians who've been prominent in this community. I've worked on Ralph Martin's campaign in '94. He was the first African American to be elected as a district attorney in this Suffolk County. And I've also worked on the presidential campaign and worked on Congress on issues that are affecting this community overall, and recently with the Speaker of the House. And those are the things with Thomas Finneran. And just by being there and by observing it, veterans, people who've been there for 20 years or more, it just gave me the adrenaline to say, we can do this. I think we can bring a new level of government and really play politics in the Boston way, the real way to play it, and I don't think we've come to that level yet.
Just before we get back to politics per se, can you quickly describe for the viewers, when we talk about the second Suffolk, what geographic communities are covered?
There's 40 state senators in Massachusetts, and there's 160 state representatives. Overall, there's 200 members. I'll be in the chamber of the Senate, hopefully, on September 15th, and that will incorporate Roxbury, Mattapan, Dorchester, Fenway, South End, Jamaica Plain, and part of the Back Bay area, in Hyde Park, part of Hyde Park, and a little bit of Rosedale. Thanks.
Caleb, can you also present what are the key points of your agenda? What's your main focus, and what do you view as your main constituency?
My main constituency, we've been building for a long time, is not only the Haitian community, which we tried very hard to build a new interest in government, because they've been involved in government for a very long time, since 1804. They're the second country in this hemisphere to gain its independence. Also, as you know, Frederick Douglass, who was a free slave and who became an abolitionist here in the New England area, was the first ambassador to Haiti, U.S. ambassador to Haiti. We've been involved in the process for a very, very long time, and now we're trying to get the community more integrated in the political system. So that's one of the communities we work very hard with. The African American community, which I'm very accustomed to because I've worked in this community most of my life. I serve on the board of Central Boston Elder Services. I've also worked on many different issues in different churches in the community. So these are the things we've worked very hard on, and that's what we're creating, a new base. There's not a major voting block, but we're trying to create a new one.
Right. I guess that the background and the base and the experience is one thing, and the political reality, what's happening on the field, is the second thing. Now let's look at these two factors. First, I guess that it will be a surprise, or maybe not, for the viewers. Caleb Desrosiers, you are 25. Not that I hold it against you. And second, you are the son of Haitian immigrants. So I am looking at those two factors, and I'm asking you, do you view these as assets or as challenges that you have to overcome?
I view them as assets because I'm not the first 25-year-old who's ever run for state office. Warren Tolman was 25 when he ran for senator, now running for lieutenant governor. Congressman Moakley was 24 years old when he first ran for state office, and now he's a prominent figure. They call him the dean. He built a very big reputation in that area. They understood Boston politics to its utmost fullest, but they also benefited from something that I think the Haitian community or other immigrant community, and including the African American, hasn't benefited from, is to understand that the vote is very important for the future, and it's also important in raising our political stock in the state house, and that's what we're trying to encourage, for more people to vote. Being an immigrant, I think, is an asset because other immigrants have done it. I think the African American community and the Caribbean community can work together to build something more productive, instead of saying that we have things that bind us. Let's work on those. If it's 5 things, let's work on those 5 things to strengthen us, than rather to look at the fact that I was here first or you came in and all that. We need to squash that, build a new structure for the next century, and really move on.
Well, that brings me to an interesting point. Could you quickly remind us who are the other candidates you are running against right now?
Sure. Currently, we have Arthur Williams, you have Frank Williams, you have Diane Wilkerson, and also on the Republican side, you have Miss Brayboy, Liz Brayboy. So there's 4 Democrats and 1 Republican, which is interesting because a Republican has no challengers in her side, so she automatically goes to the final. But the 4 of us on the Democratic side, we have a lot of work to do in trying to. It's going to be a tough one. There's going to be a big, major surprise, I think.
Well, I guess that's the point that I wanted to make. Clearly, you are at 25. You are running against other candidates that are all maybe certainly you are younger than all of them, and they certainly have been in the field or running or in office for quite a long time. So how do you use your experience or your inexperience against people who've been there?
Sure. I think that there's something to be said about what you want to bring in. It's not that you're better than someone, it's just that you're different in how you can bring more respectability to a seat. First and foremost, age has nothing to do with commitment, excellence, and integrity. Those are 3 qualities that we definitely need for our future. Second of all, we need to get the young people involved in the process. Too many of our young, educated and non-educated who want to get into the unions or get into the job market, into this community, leave Boston in very big numbers. Most of my friends who have gone to law school or who could give back to this community would rather go to New York or Atlanta or Washington because they feel that there's no inclusiveness in this community. We can, by electing someone like myself, it would say that we're in a better transition. It's not just about it's not just about being older, because that's not what's the reality. It's about the way people think. I think that's what the reality in this community, and we need some innovation in the way we think. We need a healthy competition, and to really bring this community to the next millennium.
Well, talking about youth, I'm just bringing all of this information and try to make sense of it. A year ago, there was this scandal involving Robert Parkwood, I think, 73, and there was this thing with a young woman. And then you have the Clinton-Monica saga happening right now. These are like traditional politicians. And I'm also thinking about non-traditional politicians like Al Sharpton, this minister who's been penalized because of his involvement with anyway, apparently his testimony was not accurate and he has been penalized. And I think that all of this information contribute to the growing cynicism that we are observing in the electorate. So how, as a young candidate, you can or you intend to motivate or to engage young people in the electoral process, given this cynicism that we observe at the national level?
That's a very good question, because I strongly believe that, I don't know these individuals personally, but there's probably much more politicians that are are now dealing with most of this issue. So I think when you're highlighting a prominent figure who's into a lot of trouble, it decreases who's going to come out and vote. Only 9,000 people voted in this district in the primary in 1994, and this is when there was a very contested election. This is when Bill Well was contesting, Mark Roswell was contesting Bill Well at the time. Ted Kennedy was in a major campaign with against Mitt Romney.
Oh yeah, Titanic.
Yeah,
I remember that.
So those are the things we're talking about. We're talking, how do we decrease the cynicism is by someone like myself, not about being ego-driven, which I am not, but it's about staying on the street level, trying to bring the corporate smart and the street smart together for a better future. If we can get the downtown corporate community, the black community in downtown, to be more involved in the investment in the street, on the street side, not on the grassroots level, but really educating the community about what did it take for me to get where I'm at. I think we'll have a better structure. I'm not sure if most of the audience know of Reginald Lewis, who was the first black to do a major leverage buyout in this country, who was educated here at Harvard, but his story is very phenomenal. His book changed my life. He was a young man who was determined to go to law school in Harvard at that, and he got into law school in a non-traditional way. He didn't even take the LSATs. He got in there by hustling hard, and a lot of us give up. We give up so easily, and that's why this campaign is so important, because people would expect for someone like myself, who they think is young but who's very experienced and who knows the process, to have given up. But we have challenged every of the candidates on an intellectual level. We have challenged every candidate on the issues, and that's why they are very aware that we're here, and that on September 15th, regardless of the outcome, this would hopefully mobilize a new generation to say it's not as tough as we think it is. If people are behind you, if people are encouraging you, and if you believe in it, don't ever give up on what you believe in. Don't ever. Too many of us, our dreams are falling by the wayside. We have to change that, and this could be the example to make it happen.
Yeah, Caleb, I understand that there are also sensitive issues that we can't ignore. Clearly, the race will not be colorblind. In most reviews that I've seen so far, actually, I don't know how much I've seen, but in a lot of them, I kind of remark that people tend to, whenever they talk about Caleb Desrosiers, they tend to evoke Diane Wilkerson, the first African-American woman who held a office in the Senate, and who was facing, or who's still facing, these problems because of her tax issues. Now, Diane Wilkerson clearly has a base in the black community, and it's kind of natural that you also have some kind of base in the black community. Now, how do you feel, or how do you approach this, that whenever they have to talk about you, or when they talk about you, sometimes people tend to evoke Diane Wilkerson? Is that a way? I don't know.
Sure.
How do you approach this?
I think I approach it in two ways. Some people saw it as he is the best qualified to compete with someone like a Diane Wilkerson. I have nothing against her personally. I do believe that if it wasn't for these matters, these tax issues, she would have probably been running for Congress right now, which there was some speculation to that. So I think that I want to stabilize that seat, and Diane Wilkerson knows that. She knows that I am not about running for state senate to run for Congress or run for lieutenant governor or whatever. If it takes me 20 years to stabilize that seat, that's very important, because even if I get elected on September 15th, it's going to be very hard for me to really convince the 39 other state senators that I am up to par, not because of who I am personally, but because of what my predecessors have done before me. Bill Owens had received some problems, had gone through some issues. Diane Wilkerson have gone through some issues. They, although personal, but they do affect our community. So I think that personally, I have nothing against her, but I think overall you have to look at, does your personal life affect the community as a whole? And if that ever, and this is on the air, if that would ever be the situation for me, I would definitely resign to make sure that the community can go ahead, versus, I think, stagnating the community.
Right, you just used the word personal life, and without any reference to Clinton, let me just jump in. You do know it that whenever you run for these political positions, you kind of expose your life or your private life to
how they make it up.
Right. So are there any things that the audience should know about who you are, like privately? Married, not married? How do you intend to reconcile your private life and your public duties?
I'm not married. I have no children of yet. But I have the same friends that I've had since I was born here at Boston City Hospital. The same people I grew up in the same church, the same schools. We believe in loyalty to this community. We are not going to abandon Boston for namesake. We really want to work towards building a new Boston, but we think that it's going to take the rest of the community, not just the Haitian community, which has some issues, or the Caribbean or the African, just taking the entire greater Boston community, the black minority community, to say we want some new innovation in the way we conduct ourselves. We want to introduce new ideas, and they're not going to be shunned or discouraged because they don't come from this person or that person. Let's really bring a new accord, a new level of spirit to government in the economic planning that we need for the future. We lost a lot of businesses in this community. Housing is very low. The supermarkets have all left us. You have more boarded up homes in this community than ever. And then we talk about Reinvestment Act. Those haven't really produced new home ownership. We have to look at the programs to really provide new home ownership to those who don't even know where these programs are. I think a lot of Haitians in the community would love to own a home, but they don't even know where the programs are. And the programs don't even have Kreyol or Spanish, or most of them probably have Spanish now because the Latino community has worked hard towards that. But I think the Haitian community, the Caribbean community, and the African American community overall has to say, let's build a partnership and let's really educate the people about the resources that are out there so that we can build this community together, versus saying, well, your segment, we'll work with your segment first and then we'll work with your segment next. It's about building a new partnership. And I think there needs to be more Kreyol translated government materials, right. Not only at the Attorney General's office, which deals with consumer affairs. A lot of the businesses in the community were talking about Haitians getting ripped off because they don't understand and they don't even know where to go for investigation, 93A complaints. These things need to be in Kreyol to educate the community about that.
Tele, when we talk about building the community and partnership, I assume that also means communication, tightened communication between the constituency and its representatives. Now, that's my last question. If or when you'll be elected September 15th, how accessible will you be to the community?
I'll be very accessible, not only to the community, but someone like yourself. I'm not about kissing the brass ring. I believe that we're all equal. You elect me, I'm your servant. So therefore, I am at your behest, I am at your goodwill. But I think also we have to define who the true leaders are in this community. One thing I've learned from this campaign, everybody that I've gone to their leader or they have some kind of program of some sort, let's try to stabilize, let's try to put our egos aside and say, well, here's the people that can do this for us, and let's work towards that, because we can't do everything. That's the reality. But if we can say, here's 5 things we want to concentrate on, let's work on those things, and let's work with those leaders that can make it happen and take away the feud and the namesake. I'm not running to have a SEN in front of my name. I still want to be known as Caleb. And people can call me Senator, that's fine, but I'm Caleb to the community, I'm the son of the community, and I will remain that way.
Thank you very much, Caleb, and we hope that we'll see you on this seat, Tele Kreyol in Roxbury next year, even if you are in office. Thanks a lot again.
Thank you.
This was once again on Tête-à-Tête on Tele Kreyol, Caleb Charles-Lucien, your host, receiving Caleb Bastien, running for Senate for the 2nd Suffolk, September 15th, 1998. Good evening, and talk to you soon.